Hello there, Lunar Squadron, and welcome back to the channel. We are now only 9 days away from the official release of Marvel Spider-Man 2. That's right, guys, get excited. We are in the single digits from being able to play Marvel Spider-Man 2 finally. I cannot believe how quickly this day is approaching, and today we are actually going to be talking about a brand new Marvel.com article that was just released. They sat down with some of the lead members over at Insomniac Games, and we got some brand new details about the characters and story for Marvel Spider-Man 2. We're going to break it all down for you today, but before we do that, if you're new to the channel, we would love to have you as always, and the way to do that, just go down below this video, hit that little subscribe button, the bell notification right on next to it. It'll notify you every single time that Andreas and I upload. Now with that out of the way, Andreas, let's go ahead and jump right into this article and talk about all these brand new details.
Marvel.com has sat down with Senior Creative Director Brian Inahar and Marvel Games Vice President and Creative Director Bill Roseman, and they've talked about some really interesting stuff, mainly about the personal lives of Peter Parker and Miles Morales in this game. There's a lot of great details in this article. The article is entitled Marvel's Spider-Man 2 Escalates Each Character's Personal and Superhero Struggles. This article is by Megan DeMore. I think we went over another article written by Megan DeMore last week, so that was also an interesting discussion, so I'm hoping this one will be too, and I know it will be because there are some really great things in here. Nick, why don't we just kick it off with the first quote here?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to jump right into the second paragraph of this article where Brian Inahar says, "We all talked about why do we love Spider-Man? I think the thing that we said right from the bat was he's probably the most relatable superhero out there. He's not a soldier like Captain America. He isn't a god like Thor. He isn't a billionaire like Tony Stark. He's a kid from Queens, and Miles is a kid from Brooklyn. They have good days and bad days and strengths and weaknesses and real problems that we can all identify with and have struggles that we've all had in our lives." And this continues with, "I think that we try to inject that into every story that we do. So, for example, probably most people in their lives can identify with when I have to apply for colleges. I know I absolutely can, and I know you can too, Andreas." And he continues, "That's what Miles is going through. Like, okay, I've got to write this essay, this college essay. And he's struggling with it," he continued. So, like, what I love about this, Andreas, is, again, just, we really get insight into why Insomniac does the things that they do with their stories and with their characters and kind of where they're coming from. And the thing that we've been talking about a lot on the channel for the last few weeks is just how this game is really going to show the struggle that Peter and Miles have with balancing their personal life and balancing their Spider-Man life, and how really at the end of the day, you're not able to find that balance. That balance is never going to exist. You're going to have to pick one or the other, and we're going to see as we continue through this article, that is exactly how Insomniac feels. And another thing I love is, I just love this quote about like why we love Spider-Man, because I think Brian Inahar killed it. This is exactly why I love Spider-Man. He is so relatable. He has those personal struggles that the normal person deals with, the financial issues, the personal relationship issues. He's not a billionaire. Like, he is so relatable, and no matter how many times he gets knocked down, he always gets back up on his feet. So I think Insomniac here, it's just showing that they're coming from the right place. They understand Spider-Man as a character, and they're going to do it justice.
They really do understand this character so well, and I think if we start to read in between the lines here, we can really infer what kind of a story we are going to get throughout this game and what kind of missions we are going to have throughout this game. Even the side content, we saw that we are going to be doing daily Spider-Man things, and that all plays into the relatability of this character. And to build off of that, the quote continues saying that Peter, he's trying to figure it out. Okay, I'm going to start this new teaching gig, and I'm trying to figure out living out, and I'm taking over Aunt May's house. How am I going to do it? And then taking the next step with him and MJ are back together, and what's their next step in the relationship? Where's that going? We probably all have those stories, and then not only that, Peter now has his best friend coming back into his life with Harry, and he has his best friend who he grew up with, but then he has Miles. What's that like? And then with MJ, she's trying to establish herself, and she has a boss who has a very different philosophy. And so, Nick, we start to really see a lot of different tension points in the personal lives of not only Miles with his college essay and with his family, but also with Peter and between Peter and Miles. And there's a whole new dynamic in this game with Harry entering the mix here. And one very interesting plot line is going to be how Peter and Mary Jane are going to be developing in their relationship. I know this is something that we talked about previously with that hint in the previous article saying that they're in Queens, so they might be thinking about potentially a future and a family together, and that's something that we're all wondering about. But what I'm getting in between the lines of these comments here is just that they're really making these characters incredibly personable, that we are going to get personal with all these characters, and we should start to have a great idea by the time we get to the superhero stuff of all of the stuff under the mask, what's lying in the background, and most importantly, why are we fighting these villains to begin with? What are we protecting? It's the connections, the family members, the friends, the things that are important to these Spider-Men in their personal life that makes the fight worth fighting to begin with.
Yeah, I think they've made it abundantly clear over the last few months that the foundation of this game is built on the personal side of these characters and not on the superhero side. That's all extra. That comes after the fact. It's really about digging into these personal relationships and lives that these characters have. And this article continues with, so it's finding those situations that, oh, I remember when I went through that, or I know somebody close to me that went through that. I think that's where we kind of start. So yeah, we're going to have crazy characters and Kraven and Lizard and Venom, but where's the part when they're not out there? What's that part? I think that's the thing to me that actually is the thing I talk about first. If we can get that down, the other stuff is like, I would say that's like we're baking the cake. That's the cake part, and then the icing is all the superhero stuff we got away with on top of it. So exactly what we were just talking about, building the foundation on the personal lives and the struggles that these characters have, really getting you to relate with them and empathize with them and just want to get to know them better as Peter and as Miles and as MJ. And then on top of it, the bonus that we get is we get to experience this incredible Spider-Man story. So really, I love seeing, Insomniac peel back the layers of the onion here and just provide us this insight as to how they wrote this story, how they wrote these characters. I just love articles like this that provide this insight and these details about their games.
Nick, I think a lot of other game companies would be very well serviced taking notes here, because there have been a lot of failed superhero games recently. And I don't want to name any names, but I'm thinking that this is one of the key elements in the Insomniac formula. They're not just trying to write a good superhero story with all the cool explosions and everything. They're trying to write a good story first and then integrate all of the superhero elements into it. And that's what's making people connect with their games and their story. And I think that is something that other game developers can really take away when they go forward and make better games. I know we have so many superhero games coming forward, and I would love to see that element taken into those games. I'm looking at like the Iron Man game, the Wonder Woman game, the Black Panther game, the Captain America game, like everything going forward. I'd love to see this element integrated. And as we go forward here, we also have a quote from Roseman, the creative director for Marvel Games, who says, and you talk about what they're going through, and there's an escalation, right? Because every Spider-Man story, no matter how old the different Spider-Mans are, it's always a coming-of-age story at its heart. What does that mean? Well, there are moments in our lives where we have to leave the nest for whatever reason, and at that moment, we have to make decisions by ourselves. What we have from here, from the first game to this game, is, as they're all getting a bit older, the choices that they have to make are escalated. What do I do with my life? What kind of person do I want to be? Who do I want to be my partner? So they're all at a moment where they're making some really key choices and decisions, and that's just in their civilian life. And so this is, again, Nick, they're just doubling down on how many important decisions these people are going to have to make in their personal lives. And this is really going to be a coming-of-age story, not just for Pete, not just for Miles, but for both of them as they're growing at different stages of their lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And this article continues with, so you add on all the superhero, and that's the Marvel magic, we say. Worlds colliding. My civilian life, my superhero life. They're both at odds, and I have to make a choice. As you go through the game and experience it, you'll see all the choices. And then Intihar talks about how he referred back to the first game to illustrate the point. Just talking about Marvel Spider-Man, why Peter is 23, because that was the year I finally kind of was like, okay, I'm on my own now. I was like, I want to tell that story. I want to tell when I was 23 years old, done with college, at my first job. What was that like? That's why he's 23. Selfishly, I wanted to be Peter Parker at 23 years old. I love this insight from Intihar here because it provides the backbone for like why they made the decision with Peter Parker. Why did they make him 23? Well, he wanted to see himself in this character. He wanted to inject some of his personal experiences and his personal life into this character. And that's just what I love about what Insomniac does. This is not just a game they're making because it's going to be the best-selling game on PlayStation 5 of the generation and it's going to make Sony a bunch of money. No, they really care about the story that they're telling. They really care about this character, and that is what's going to make this game so special. And it's just, again, stuff I love hearing from Insomniac Games because it proves that at the end of the day, it's about telling a great story. It's about relating to these characters, and it's about putting a piece of themselves into this game, and that's where you're going to get something truly special.
And on that same note, Nick, it goes on to say it's finding those relatable situations that we can all relate to because it just makes it easier to write and coordinate and talk about. Again, the superhero stuff is great, but you have to have the human. And I love this final quote here. This is something that I think is a really interesting concept to chew on, and it comes from John Paquette. He says, when we're writing and creating the characters, we always say that when Spider-Man wins, Peter loses, or Miles loses, or MJ loses. That push and pull has always got to be there, because it's not just one big sacrifice for every Spider-Man story. Spider-Man is constantly sacrificing. He's constantly got to make choices between, do I do something for Spider-Man or do I do something for myself? That is, I think, what makes him a really cool character, somewhat relatable, but it's really fun to work with that dynamic. Nick, I think this is a really great way of illustrating the zero-sum game that we've seen with Spider-Man characters throughout many different mediums. It has always been that struggle between, satisfying what Peter wants or Miles with satisfying your responsibility to honor the powers that you have and the responsibility that you have as Spider-Man to protect the people that you love. And it's that responsibility that's in tension with the personal life that you would love to live. And we've seen time and time again how that tension plays out. And again, it's another example where Insomniac really just understands this character to its core. And I know, Nick, you had a bunch of thoughts on this one as well, because I know you're in deep with the Spider-Man lore and philosophy here.
Yeah, this really was the highlight of the article for me. I absolutely love this quote because it proves that, again, they just understand this character, because that is probably the underlying story beat of Spider-Man as a franchise, and that is there is no balance. He's always looking for that balance of his personal life, of his Spider-Man life, but it's impossible to find. It's never going to happen. He's never going to be able to satisfy being Peter Parker and Spider-Man, or Miles Morales and Spider-Man at the same time. It's never going to happen. He's always going to have to sacrifice one or the other. And, what we've seen from Spider-Man, because Peter and Miles, they're such great guys, they're never going to pick their personal lives over the needs of the city, the needs of being Spider-Man. And, we've seen instances in the past where maybe they briefly make that decision in a moment of weakness or a moment of regret. Think back to Spider-Man 2, the movie, where, Peter walks away from being Spider-Man because he can't do it anymore because of how much it's impacting his personal life, but he can't stay away. He comes back. He simply cannot get rid of it. He has to be Spider-Man. He has to adhere to the needs of the city. And I just love that Insomniac gets that, because that really is the heart of this story. And another reason why Spider-Man is so relatable and why we all love him so much is because he will always put the needs of the people, the needs of the city, the needs of the mask above his own, no matter what it is, no matter what it costs him. He will make that sacrifice. And I am so excited to see in this game how they have made this story around that general principle of Spider-Man. What exactly is Peter and what exactly is Miles going to have to sacrifice? What are they going to go through to save the people that they love, to save the people of New York City, to save the city itself? And I just love that this is the type of insight and quotes that we're getting about this game, because that just gets me as hyped as seeing, an incredible CGI trailer, because it just proves to me that these guys get it. These people get what they're doing, and they get what the story needs to do to tell an incredible and accurate and authentic Spider-Man story. So guys, let us know down below in the comments what you think of all of this new insight, new details about the story and characters from Marvel's Spider-Man 2. What do you guys think is going to happen in this story? Please, no leaks, no spoilers. We're not going to tolerate any of that. We don't want to do any of that, but just give us your thoughts about what you think is going to go down, because we definitely love interacting and reading through all of your comments. But guys, that is going to do it for us for this one. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, we will see you all next time.